And here we go. So thanks everyone for joining. Nice to see all of you. And I will now share my screen. And there's a lot on the agenda for this screen here today. Unfortunately, a lot of it was put by Jessica, I can see, and she's not in the call today. Well, the point you mentioned here is the Telegram group policy. How do we manage that for the CCA? I also put just some basic points on what have happened since last time and the follow-up on the action steps we took last time. And then basically discussing the purpose. I have been reorganizing some of the Telegram groups and also wanted to get an update on the grants since it's been 1 month now since we put out the open call, and we're ready now to announce the first participants. Then there's a lot of stuff here from Jessica also on potluck and long-term fundraising, some governance. I find it a bit hard to have those. We can talk about it if we want to, but I would say we're not mandated to talk about it when the person proposing the stuff is not in the call. Griff and Will, I know you're busy people. Do you have some other stuff you want us to add to the agenda? We can trim it down.
I'm mostly here just to watch, and although I do have a Giveth meeting in 25 minutes, so if there is anything that's valuable to be in the loop on, definitely move it to the front.
Okay, sure. I mean, I'm still waiting for the praise bot, for example, to getting started, but I guess that's blocked, right, for XDI or?
For praise bot is there. It's we can dish praise whenever we want. We just need someone to want to lead the charge, but it's sitting there.
Yeah, okay, maybe I'm misunderstanding. It's not an issue with the on-chain fees because it's just basically the bot to the spreadsheet. Okay, I see.
Yeah. The bot turns into a spreadsheet, and then you do whatever you want with it.
Okay. And how about you, Will? You have some specific points you want to discuss today?
I would listen, and if I have some input, I will add. And maybe if you have time, I may ask questions to get a better understanding of the projects.
Yeah, sure, sounds good. And how about you, Will? You have some agenda points?
Yeah, I think mainly the potluck. Just talking about, combining forces kind of stuff.
Okay, good. Potluck is already there, so we're definitely going to keep that. And hi to you, Lara. Nice to meet you. Oh, Miguel, I changed the name to now. Okay, can you hear us? All right, so let's get started then. I have already told some of you about it, but I'm sitting here with the blog post that I put out just now on the blog. And it's basically a little bit childish, you can see, but here are the people that we have selected. We have summoned the first participants for the Community Currency Accelerator, and I think we're still going to edit it a bit, and then we're ready to basically put it on Twitter and launch it and so forth. If you want to have a sneak peek, you can go to the blog now, and it's there. You can see there are some here under education, narrative storytelling, communication and education, research best practices, and they're all within the education category. Then for infrastructure category, we have the potluck that we're going to talk more about today. And then we have the core resources, which is Emin helping us up to speed with the website and potentially other new software components in the future. And then today we just finished our first legal call also in collaboration with Blockchain for Humanity and a few engaged lawyers there. And here are some of the people mentioned also: Enrique, Santiago, Chris, Luis, and Leander, who are helping on that front. Yeah, so if you feel like, you can have a look, and that's just an update on that front. I think, do you have any questions on this? Anyone have any comments? No? There should not be two pictures here. That's me doing a mistake. It's maybe two. I'm thinking about alliance, alliance. Maybe someone gets it. What? All right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would just run it through Wael and Jessica. Seems like if you're going for this 5, she would have a lot of good input.
Yeah. Hey, Jacob.
But I guess she might be out of service these days.
Yeah, I think Jessica is camping right now. Most people have already talked with about this more or less, and we factor a little bit. Yeah. Hi, Jacob. Nice to meet you. So I think Jacob is actually one of the guys who doesn't know about this. So Jacob, I'm sitting here with the first participants in the Community Currency Accelerator, and we accepted your proposal with Sanel and Valentin on the research best practices. It's still a bit up for you guys to decide. I've also created a specific research group for you. This is not like launched yet, but you can have a look if you want, and we're just gonna get someone native English to look at it and then set it out soon. So Jacob, as I know you were very active last time, do you have any agenda points you want to have on the list today?
Yeah, I guess. And hi, everyone. I'm sorry, I'm in a bit of noisy environment, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to participate very fully. But I think no specific points for me. Perhaps in the end, if there was a bit of time, then if anyone has inputs about the Promise Theory project, which I was putting out the proposal, but if not, then no problems.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah. Thank you. All right. So my suggestion would be then we talk about, well, what you proposed, the Telegram group policy. That seems like a good starting point, I think, to start with. Could you maybe tell a little bit about, well, about what you meant with this point?
Yeah, as I was added to the group, it was not clear if I was able to add new members, and the group is closed, so there is only facilitator who are able to add new members. And I just proposed the idea, if I want to add a new member, to make sure he has something related to community currency, and then if this is the case, then I can promote him, and that, so that not every newcomer will ask the same question. It would be like good to have kind of bullet points in the pin message, how it works with adding new members and some kind of group policy.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. Anyone has some comments on that? Like how anyone thinks how it should be, policy and in Telegram for this? Do we want to have it private? Do we want to have it public? And what should be in the pin description? What is most needed?
I can chip in. I would say, just my experience with these kind of community currency focused groups is that they sort of turn into, at some point, just sort of like mindless kind of marketing pages in a way, where people just like, it's like a Twitter feed, right? People, there's not much interaction and whatnot on it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but just to sort of expect that outcome. And I guess, the more facilitated the group can be, in some ways, the better. That's also hard to do. So I don't know. I'm sure Griff has some ideas around that community. I don't want to get too much into this, actually. I'd much rather, while Griff's still here, I'd rather talk about the potluck. Let me jump into it, if that's okay.
I think we're just going to spend a few minutes on this topic, and then we're going to go all potluck from there.
Okay.
Do you have any comment, Griff, or are you?
Yeah, on the Telegram group, you know, it's kind of a weird thing, but I do like the closed groups. In general, it would be nice if there was a closed group and an open group where anyone can come in and it can go into that like Twitter feed or whatever. But having a space where Matthew Slater can talk with, you know, Will and all these other guys and not feel like, you know, a lot of random people are going to come in is really valuable. And honestly, the current group may have already gotten too big. So I don't know. I think there might be space for opening it up eventually if it starts to feel like it's already getting a little spammy, and then start a new, like, you know, the geniuses of CCA or the wizards, the CCA wizards, or some kind of cool, fun, like core group.
Get the shit done group.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and maybe that seems like a different group. There's the core team group that is actually doing stuff, and then there's the wise researchers that, you know, part of the CCA's value is just allowing these people to all be, enabling these people to have a place where they can all share ideas, right? And make sure that it feels like a safe, curated space, so that, you know, we can get the CCA guys to find out more about crypto, and the crypto, like, people who are kind of on the same vibe to benefit from the wisdom that people who've been doing it for 20 years, who all seem to have like little fights with each other, which is really funny. But to get them all to be able to hang out cohesively in a Telegram group, there's a lot of benefit there, a lot of value.
I won't not spend too much on that topic until there is a real problem. It can be addressed when it's
also
needed.
there are some hack rails. For example, we are putting the Telegram link different places, on YouTube, on the website. So if you really want to invite someone, you can go to the website, you can click on Telegram, and you can give them that link. This is just like a minor filter to not make it totally public. It's still a private group, but you can actually invite like that without being an admin. A small announcement also is that I spoke with Julio about this, and I have today turned and created new groups for specific things. So we have a CCA research, fundraising, infrastructure. We're going to also have an announcement channel, which is just like only a feed. I'll make sure latest tomorrow that this is updated in the pinned description. So we have a link, what are you asking for? So we have like this pinned message about all this. And then I think this is also up then to some of the people selected to lead the communications area, like how then they think. And it's probably going to evolve also from time to time.
Yeah, just make sure you recommend people use folders. Folders in Telegram are a lifesaver.
To how, sorry? One more time?
It's a lot of groups. So if someone really cares about some of these groups, you know, they can only pin 5 to the top. Yeah. But I think folders is kind of an undiscovered feature for a lot of people on Telegram. So if you're going to expand to a lot of groups, in the announcement, recommend folders to people.
Okay, thanks. I think I'm one of those who are not using folders. I should. Thanks a lot for that too. Yeah. Okay, cool. So then I think we're just going to move into the potluck agenda point now. Will, Griff, who want to start?
So, without getting super long and baggy and all that about this, the idea is, are there sets of software infrastructure that all kind of work together in a good way? And that it doesn't have to be just software. There's also, educational modules and writing, and there's a lot of stuff that I can imagine in an ecosystem around supporting infrastructure around community currencies, right? DAO type systems, governance, training, like there's a whole giant ecosystem just around that. And then there's a million spin-offs to that kind of stuff too, getting into token engineering and common stack and all the breadth of possible outcomes. And so in funding that industry, right, that's sort of underlying this infrastructure, that we're trying to build. I just for one, I just like that concept, and two, I think doing it using some of these instruments like these bonding curves is cool. So that was sort of the impetus around the potluck, which was kind of like, can we do online what we do in a village? Which is basically like, people are already in coexisting relationships where they're selling food and, doing haircuts for each other and, teaching each other's kids and, all that kind of stuff is already going on. They're already in an economy, but we're not. We're trying to project one into the future. And they do that in the village too. It's not necessarily always natural for them to try to plan, like, okay, we need to deal with this water problem over here. They need tools. Everyone needs tools. So that was my impetus and idea around that. And then, just turning it into just a fundraising mechanism. I feel like, very similar to all the fundraising mechanisms we've been talking about regarding bonding curves for a long time. The continuous organization aspect of it. And like the double win for everyone is this: if those tokens can support an ecosystem and actually circulate, well, that's amazing. Making that happen is not easy. It takes a lot of organization and, keen choices. So anyways, that was my intro.
And what's the status? Is there a defined mission and like vision for the potluck group and the currency?
I would say at this point, it's essentially a bit of an oligarchy in the sense where we're basically just saying whoever's putting in reserve gets tokens, and they get to decide. You could decide as a group or however how to distribute those, or just to keep them and be a liquidity provider. So in terms of that, it's like, okay, and then we've got people offering projects. And yeah, the theme around this has been kind of what, I've talked about around currencies, and that ecosystem and infrastructure around currencies. But I don't, like having it more broad into being more like commons based and voting and all this kind of stuff, I think is totally appropriate. It's all the stuff we all need anyways.
And
so yeah, that's the state of it right now. Yeah.
And so it seems like there's like been a lot of culture, like a lot of people are excited about it. Is there anyone who is like, what are the next steps to actually start making it a currency?
I think one or two more kind of group meetings, and then just like, whatever the offer is on the table to liquidity providers, like make that crystal clear. In other words, like put it onto a Gitcoin grant or something like that, like make some sort of autonomous way to feed into the hatch, right? And then at that point, it is what it is. I mean, there's a lot of pieces to the ecosystem that don't exist, and that is like the voting systems don't really, like the marketplace. Where's the marketplace? Like how do we track all of this movement stuff? Like where are the dashboards? There's also, the pieces are all kind of there, and I think that's, to me, what's exciting to look at is to say like, what group market kind of marketplace software that allows people to create groups and interact with each other and, plug in a currency or a voting system, or, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of this ecosystem that is just like, we've already described, I feel like a million times. It's just, putting all the pieces together. And I feel like there's, a million competing tech companies all trying to do the same thing, but they're not cooperating with each other, right? And that's not always easy, So I think, the magic in a way of this kind of, doing this kind of thing, and Griffey, you've been talking about doing this forever, is that, there's this double win. It's convincing people to work with each other for a common good, describing that common good, making sure that, investors or liquidity providers are going to, understand the risks that they're taking and believe in the investments that they're taking. Like, I think it's all, I feel like we're like, 75% there. So like, yeah, in particular, next steps would be just a deployment tool, right? Or a deployment DAO. That's technical next steps, but like culturally, like the defining that space is really the, and I, you know, like Jeff's done a lot of this with his like kind of mind maps around, you know, different parts and whatnot, you know, between all these different software techs. But I think that's also missing too. I mean, people have put, I think, something like 20 projects or something on there, and you know, some of them are just sort of half thought out things. I don't think that's you know, a spreadsheet is not meant to be a medium for proposals, right?
Yeah.
So that needs to be fixed. You know, so again, like, where do we put those proposals? Right? You know, like all of these little pieces just aren't there. It's just like, you know, you're like describing a skeleton of what could be there, and like what's there when a bunch of mamas get together in their village. Like, it's like, okay, yeah, it's there, you know? So yeah, it's not here yet, but it could be.
It sounds like you're in a place where just identifying all the missing pieces that need to be there could be really valuable, because like you said, all of the things that are missing, they exist. They just need to be arranged. Like, do you have anyone who's feeling like they want to run like sort of a project management role of just like organizing all this stuff together?
No, definitely not. No.
Who are the leaders in general?
I've got, yeah. Hi, I'm Miguel. You know, I know Will, and I've been writing to Gustav. Hi everyone. I have a project called Wikibank that we are doing something in the poorest neighborhood here in Spain with Fuse.io. So and it's working. We've been supporting like 20 families, and it's actually not on the cloud, but actually making transaction, buying real stuff. So, well, that's what we are doing. And I think there's a good tool for this, which is one of the pieces that Will is mentioning, is the colony.io. You know it? It's a DAO. I think Colony is a good piece for the things that you're saying. But most of the thing that I find missing when you create a community is an incentive to actually get stuff done. Because most of the time, communities relies on a single person taking most of the weight. In this case, is Gustav organizing stuff and some people supporting around. So when that person get sick or get tired of doing the same stuff, the community just disappear. So it has to be an extra incentive for the people to actually get things done. And I think Colony is one of those pieces. Actually, it's a DAO. You can create incentives and you can share those incentives among the community. So you get to know, you get reputation, you get to know who's doing what. Maybe it's just a tool to explore. And I think if we want to plug things together, it will have to work on some kind of common protocol. And DAOs are right now one of those protocols that actually works.
Cool.
Miguel, thanks a lot for that contribution. I'm just going to ask you, Griff, because I know you got to go soon, and I'm very curious about, you normally always talk about we need to simulate this stuff, and we need not just to try it out and see how it goes. And do you have any advices for from what you hear now from the potluck? How are any of those tools available for us to start simulate anything
I'm of two minds of that one. I actually don't think simulation is good for any single project. It's good for all projects, right? It's kind of there's a bit of a tragedy of a commons thing where we need people to simulate as a community. We need more simulations. But if you as a project try to simulate your system, you better have millions of dollars and lots of time to do it, because otherwise it won't really be useful. It's not it's an art and a science, and it doesn't make sense for a small project. It makes more sense for MakerDAO or somebody who's already done an ICO. So I wouldn't even try to simulate. I would just, for a small project like this, I would recommend just like, at this point, there's been a lot of cultural build. I would find like 3 people to be a small core team and just have them do it, give them some, find the people that you think are best will, you know, to actually like launch this thing. And we raise some money for them through Gitcoin grants or something, or even just private donations from your friends, and get them working full time and just push this thing forward. That's my suggestion.
Okay, so I just wanted to say one thing about this idea of like organizations being the sort of members, or like in a way the primary members, and potentially the reserve providers, or some of the reserve or liquidity providers, right? In that case, like the mutual win of, you know, them paying for stuff that they would have paid for anyways. Oh, I got some echo here. You guys hear that? Anyway.
Yeah, I actually have to run anyway. I'm leading another call. So
okay.
Sorry.
Anyway, I just want to say, like, that's the concept to me, is having, you know, groups of organizations that are, you know, their project, in other words, is, you know, what they're doing. Like they have a business plan. They know what, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be that organized, but that's nice, in other words. And it's a different type of community around that as well. But anyways, cool.
Thanks, Will. And yeah, feel free to message me. And I'm excited about supporting the potluck. So, you know, whatever we got to do.
Cool.
Thanks, Griff. See you. Bye-bye.
Well, I'm a bit slow recently on all this stuff, but it's the basic idea that you're creating like a partially collateralized mutual credit system.
Yeah, I don't know. The word mutual credit, you know, sometimes, like when I'm talking with Matthew, he will say that it's not so much about the starting at zero and go up and down around zero. It's just the concept of trade balance is important, and there's some mutual decision making, and you know what I mean. So in this case, we could say we're still going to care about trade balance the same way you would in mutual credit, but that's a cultural thing rather than like some sort of, you know, mathematical, you know, hope. So in this case, we're basically saying let's create a credit supply X large, and X large is based on what are the commitments to community projects and offering goods and services, right? So it is, you're basically budgeting. You're saying, look, we have these projects, we have all these resources in terms of goods and labor. Let's actually put a number to that. That's our budget. Those are how many tokens we're going to create. They're backed by our commitments, and we're going to collateralize that. We're going to put some reserve of whatever, and whatever could be a national currency, it could be a voting token, it could be carbon credits, it could be any tokenized asset or just, you know, token system even. And so the idea of just saying, well, look, we're creating a credit space and we're defining some collateral as something we value. And so using national currency is what we're talking about right now with this potluck, because we have some national currency. You know, we have a limited amount of national currency through grants and whatnot. And, you know, the same with my organization here in Kenya. We've got our, you know, limited resources, and we want to use those the best we can to create ecosystems. And so the idea is to invest that money into a curve, into a reserve, and mint some tokens based on that. If we can spend those into circulation, and they actually end up circulating and creating an ecosystem between organizations and projects, like, great, we did a good job. You know, worst case scenario, all of them are simply cashed out for the reserve on this bonding curve, and no one circulates them anymore. And we still did our job in terms of allocating funds, right? In terms of project management and dealing with grant money. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, yeah.
So just, is it like a kind of stable coin thing, like a sort of, in that sense?
The stable coin's the reserve. So for instance, we're looking at using XCHF, which is like a crypto Swiss franc, which is really just an amount in a bank that has been tokenized, and then there's a process to audit that they're the same. The bank account ledger is the same as the Ethereum ledger. And then we're bonding that digital asset into a contract. And then that contract says that you will mint a certain amount of tokens to begin with based on how much reserve is there. And then whenever anyone sends one of those tokens that you've minted, this is the community inclusion currency kind of concept here. Whenever you send one of those to one of these contracts, these converters, they have an algorithm, a curve that basically says this is how much of the reserve you get out right now, right? And that varies based on how much reserve is still there compared to the supply of the CICs, of the tokens that you've created. And so basically it's a way of saying we're creating a bond, like a boundary around the credit we're creating. So in a mutual credit, there's usually almost technically no boundaries at all, you know, unless they're sort of hard limit imposed somehow, like how negative can someone go, for instance, and on what basis. And in this case, we're drawing a line around a mutually created token, right, and saying these are the bounds of how it can communicate with its reserve, right? You're creating a membrane that connects it to this reserve or national currency. It's like you're sinking down the national currency into a pit. The local currency is flowing around in that pit, but if you want to actually get out of that pit, you're going to spend that much energy, right? That membrane has a cost, right? And that cost, anyways, yeah. I think it's a fundamentally different concept in a way than the sort of the mutual credits that sort of pop out of existence, right? If I do something good for you and you give me 10 credits and you go negative 10 credits, like that is a particular algorithm, right? It is creating a supply of credit and some debit, but like why? It's doing that because we believe in there's going to be reciprocity, that you know, trade balance should go back to zero. But actually, what we kind of need to do, in my opinion, is put boundaries around that credit creation and basically say, how can we de-risk that? How can we basically say, you know, if I do something for you, fine. What's your option in case I don't accept those credits back? Is there any option that you have? What do we value, you know, and then how do we connect this credit system to other credit systems? So that's, you know, to me, the whole concept of bonding curve as a protocol is basically to say is, you know, what is the connection between what you have, this form of credit, and some kind of reserve that the community values and that neighboring community also values.
And Will, in the current specification, I know it's evolving. I see you're writing major breakthrough, major update right now on the Podlog channel. But for these limitations, or like you say, borders around the credit, I assume it could have something to do with entry fees or exit fees too. So like if you want to go back, for example, how is that currently right now? And also, what is it already decided how should the curve look like? What's, you know, how is that the price going to evolve?
Okay, so far that channel has just been us, like a few people discussing what we're doing in Kenya, and then saying, is that applicable to a group of organizations and businesses online? Can we also create a community, an ecosystem, you know, a credit space by projecting into the future of this industry, for instance, right? So that's been the idea. And so literally, like, it's purely been like a descriptive thing. When people have been contributing to the spreadsheet and you know, like talking about what they need and what they offer, and people have been putting in projects a little bit, and it's all very sort of in sketch right now, right? The projects don't have timelines. You know what I mean? Like, there's no sense of guarantors. There's nothing. I mean, because a lot of the stuff that we do in Kenya is totally social. You know, it's the chief and there's the hand raising, and, you know, like, people know each other. They've had relationships, economic relationships for years, right? Maybe generations, right? Like, so a lot of the process is completely foreign, right, to what we're doing on the ground here. So it's to me, that's a fun process. It's like, I can sort of imagine it working, right? But getting to that point of, you know, like Griff was saying, the energy it takes to organize this kind of thing and bring people into it and actually see the connections, right, between this marketing app and, you know, this wallet system and, you know, all these kind of infrastructure pieces. like it's huge. It's a giant thing, and it's kind of what we're doing anyways. So I don't, like I don't mind taking a few hours here and there doing that, but yeah, it's kind of a massive thing, and it's a little bit of like, maybe if we're lucky, the ecosystem can be or is rich enough to create life, to actually like thrive on its own, and build around it, and that sort of thing. And I think the bonding curve is a cool mechanism for that. It can potentially help bring sort of bootstrapping and investment into the space. And I really like the investment modality too. I really think if we think more in terms of investment, it helps within the community currency world, especially when you're trying to think of, how to fund massive infrastructure, like, digging swales and doing, agroforestry from here to the Congo. We need huge workforces. How would we ever fund that with a mutual credit? Like, I don't know. I is the answer. Maybe there's possible, but like, it's not made for that. In other words, this is in a way you're sort of taking a loan against your future production, right? You're actually really consciously doing that. Yeah.
And we'll just as time is running here, what are the next steps? How can people get involved? As the people who were early in this call know, we have just announced that the potluck is going to receive 3,000 for the development, and I know there's a lot going on. But how can people join? Or people watching this call? What's the next step for the potluck?
Sure.
Project?
I mean, we need to solidify those rules, and the we, I believe, is the people who are putting in reserve, right? These are sort of the early adopters, the investors into this space that we're creating right here. And so like that $3,000, that is it's an investment into that space, right? You guys are going to basically create on the order of, for 3,000, you're going to create 12,000 tokens, okay? For instance, at a 4x leverage, right? So those 12,000 tokens, you're going to then designate those to projects, right? And those projects need to be well thought out, and like you have to choose, why certain projects would you choose? And at the same time, grassroots economics is there. We're trying to figure out how much money we can put into it, but something like that as well, 4,000. And again, we have our projects that we also want to contribute to, and some of those are overlapping. And if even just between that space right there is enough of those projects that actually create some demand on the token. Let's say that the training that's created is paid for in that token, for instance, out of one of these projects. Like the best practices, all this kind of like there's some sort of token used for the time to even develop those projects. If we can find the ways that these can cycle and connect with each other, I think that's the challenge. And yeah, that space, usually that's the problem in the village when two people want to do this and one has tomatoes and the other has oranges. Say, well, you guys, you need more people in your network, right? It's not full. You can't live on tomatoes and oranges.
And when is the next call for potluck? Is it on Tuesday or Wednesday? So I can't remember which day are the fixed.
It's on Tuesday night for me here in Kenya.
Okay. Great.
GMT +3.
Okay. Thanks. I think I'll just gonna move a bit. Sorry, did you say anything, Jessica?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to say that I think we should mention two things. Number one, instead of an investment, I think, Griff and I have been communicating it as a co-vestment. And I think this is a really, good distinction. And second, I think we should mention, the challenge so far, I've been in almost all of the potluck meetings. The challenge is getting everyone aligned around a specific purpose. What is the purpose of the token? So I feel like CCA could really help to guide that. And we kind of need to determine as a group, are we using this token just for CCA? Are we trying to use it as like an ecosystem bridge between the TEC and the CCA and get all these other groups on board so that we have a wider network of people using the currency, which is of course how it's going to succeed. So I think I just wanted to say that if people join, we really could use help and maybe a few more people kind of pushing to come to some sort of point of decision in what is the purpose.
Okay, thanks a lot. I just want to give Brett and Jessica also, because you arrived a bit late and we don't have that much time left. If you had any specific agenda points you wanted to add to, now's the chance. And congratulations. Earlier in the call, you were both announced as grant recipients, by the way.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. No announcements other than, just in case everyone doesn't know, David Graeber died today, which is extremely very sad. I'm sure many of you know David or have dealt with him in the past, but he was a friend of mine. So that's all.
And a great, I never met him in person, but I just know his work. I read the whole book, and a great thinker in so many ways. Yeah, it's very, very sad. I think that's also why Julio is not here today, actually. It was his teacher at in London, I believe, right? And they had a pretty close relationship. Yeah. So that's very, very sad. Yeah.
But we carry on the work, so that's good.
We do, for sure.
Totally.
And Jessica, you had a lot of agenda points, and some of them I removed because you were not in the call when we started. But
yeah,
do you have a favorite point you would want us to dive into?
A favorite point. Yeah, I apologize. I was struggling with the Wi-Fi this morning as we're on the road. But I guess the main thing I wanted to do was get a little bit of feedback, and maybe we can do that in a smaller group with Julio and Brett and you and myself, about what people think is kind of the highest impact ways for us to begin on the communication and education deliverables and how we're going to organize that. But yeah, maybe that's a smaller breakout. There's so many directions we can build, and Brett has started that wonderful document that we can make, kind of more actionable now with, are we going to produce videos? Do we have distribution mechanisms? And are we, where and how do we want to build this kind of education knowledge center for everybody to go to? Will, if you haven't seen it, made a fantastic educational tool that you can go in and kind of see what is a fractional reserve currency and play with kind of creating, a currency in a gamified way. I think it's a super, super powerful tool that we can put out. I already really would like to write a blog with that. And so yeah, just wanted to align with Brett and whoever else wants to contribute to the narrative and making the education and comms more actionable.
Do you think, is it possible already now to agree on some kind of call time where at least I would love to join too, and I'm sure Julio too, but maybe others, but like to dive in on this focus? Brett, or should we just start the discussion there, or can we agree on a call time now, just as a next step? 2 weeks from now, 1 week from now?
Maybe not Wednesday or Thursday?
Sure, I'm pretty flexible, hey? So I don't really have a diary in front of me right now, to be honest, guys.
Okay, no problem. Sorry to put you on the spot. So I also created a group now called Telegram called Communication. And that's why I thought we could dive into these topics and kind of, as you say, Jessica, get more clear answers to that. And I would say the people in there, and everyone can join, but the people in there are one who really call the shots on those efforts. And Julio told me he would love to be very engaged. I'm also going to be a bit engaged, but not that engaged in that topic there. But the group is there, and I hope soon we can start moving that.
Yeah, and I think too, maybe, yeah, we just, once we start documenting, we can always put it out to the community to get some feedback, or if anyone has like a particularly hot burning, idea of somebody they would like us to see us interview or something like this. I also had an idea about, putting up a Google form that people can fill out if they want to be on the Friday calls, maybe also doing a Google form if they would like me to interview them and make some sort of video content from that. And then also I think Jeff and I are working on a Twitter cartel to do because we have access to so many Twitter handles. So we're looking at organizing that around funding, so to kind of cross promote in the ecosystem. So perhaps there's a similar thing we can do. I don't know that we have the bandwidth to run that, since we're now running the kind of TEC Twitter cartel, but maybe if we all collectively can get some kind of, and we're going to build this out as a process, but it will take a little bit of time. But if we can all, we've all got Twitters, we've all know influencers with, thousands and thousands of followers. So if we can get some clear process and documentation around how people can help us, because it's great to make amazing content, but if you have no distribution, so if we can align around some distribution process and strategy that's easy to follow, that has like copy paste templates for people, I see that as like some of the ways we can start to really gain some more traction in the comms areas.
Sounds brilliant. Anyone has some more comments on this? Or
I have maybe something while here. Maybe I have developed something, maybe it can be used in this kind of developing communication, which is answers the question, how can we build a generative common context? Context can be a mission or a case or an issue, and it is based about raising questions first so that people in a wiki answer together a list of questions, and it can help on that people just jump in and see what's actual, which question is on the top, and they use their intuitions at that moment and get on the topic. So instead of talking and writing a lot of chats, people get used to raise questions. They are related to ideas they have or thoughts they have, and then write below the question what they have. And then when I see the question, then the same kind of source is activated, and I try to add my part to that. So I offer this as complementary also tooling in kind of mass engagement.
Okay, thanks a lot for that contribution, as well. So Jacob, I think the last agenda point was what you wanted to talk about. It's a hard thing. What is the promise theory related to community currency? Is that correct? Could you please elaborate a bit?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I was spamming the chat because there is noise, but I cannot move anywhere else because there is limited Wi-Fi. So I spammed the chat with the links. So if you're interested in the topic, I made like a work in progress proposal where people are chipping in organically. So feel free to comment or feedback. And this is like the gist of the proposal of the mini project. And yeah, and I'd be happy also to at least listen in the education group or be a part of it in some part, so just to signal. But I'm not sure if you're hearing me because there's noise and.
I think we hear you pretty well. A little bit like nice bar vibe, but your voice is loud and clear.
Yeah, and so I think like I don't have any specific steps. It's just an invitation. If anyone had ideas or any kind of inputs or suggestions, then I've put the link into the chat for the promise theory thingy. And yeah, it's getting some responses from people. So, and I didn't want to like make it super public yet before it like it's kind of framed. Yeah, it's kind of pulling people in from kind of I don't know how to say it. Sorry, my English is getting bad after the whole day, but it's slowly building up, if it makes sense.
Momentum, maybe.
I would distill a more public proposal for invitation when we have set up the structure or how to actually conceive of the process. Now it's more like kind of, I don't want to make it exclusive, but it's more like it's kind of safe haven to contribute before it becomes noisy, I would say.
Yeah, okay. Anyone has some remarks to that? I mean, that's great work, Jacob. I've not read the paper, but I can see there's a lot of work put into it and some good feedback going.
It sounds good. Jacob, have you gotten this professor that wrote the stuff on promise theory to engage at all, or?
Yeah. He's contributing to the document already. So he has
great.
written his kind of outcomes he'd like from the engagement, and he's very open. That which is great.
Cool.
And also
Yeah,
the
I
second
think
author.
just one point to add, Gus, is what you kind of brought up yesterday that I think is really important about the communications narratives and what you were saying, Jakob. Before we, get so many people in the community and before we shout so loud, we do kind of need foundational things there to point people to it, even having some kind of a call to action or building out this education center. People can come, but so far we don't really have anything to show. So I think identifying first those foundations and what we think those are, and at what point are we ready to kind of like cast a wider net or invite more communities to come, and what do we want them to do and what do we want to have for them. So I thought, Gus, that was a fantastic point that you said yesterday, that we should keep kind of front and center while we build this part.
Yeah, and just to like rephrase, it's a little bit internal comment. What I said yesterday to Jessica was basically just like, yeah, we could go mainstream now. We could try to get thousands of viewers or whatever, but we don't really have educational resources ready. We don't really have easy to use software. We don't really have a legal framework ready. All these things we're building now, it's at least that's how I view it, that the highest impact is actually engaging with the people in this call here, like other nerds like us, which are bringing academic nerdship or from technology part or product or from community currency economics, and yeah. So from my point of view, that's definitely where the focus should be right now. But that's also what I see, and I didn't see, for example, this paper here of you, Jacob, and it's very nice to just see, oh, okay, something's happening there and people are already engaging and so forth. It's very nice to see collaboration is going on.
I would just sort of add that, like, look, nothing's ever ready. You're never ready to have a child, for instance. You're never ready. You know what I mean? Like, so it's good to, like, if there are calls to action, and I feel like I sometimes like will do a lot of like little mini calls, and yeah, I maybe I don't broadcast them very much, but it's still like, it's just super important to keep the momentum going and just, keep at it.
Okay, so anyone else has something to add before we close this call?
I just need to jump now, so thank you very much, and I will just see you on the chats.
Then I think I'm gonna jump too then. So see you, all of you guys. Bye bye. Thanks a lot for joining. Have a nice day. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.